Welcome. I'm Jared Asch, the Capstone Conversation. We are talking today to Supervisor Ken Carlson, who represents Contra Costa County in District 4. He has been in office for just shy of 1 year now, but not a stranger to the county. He has worked in the past as a police officer and has served as the mayor of the city of Pleasant Hill. He is also my supervisor, so I appreciate all the work that he is doing in our community. And we're going to talk about all things Contra Costa County today. So thanks, Supervisor, for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Why don't you go ahead? I elaborate on background, but any more details you want to share about where you come from and how you got here?
Yeah, so just real quick, born and bred right here in Contra Costa County. So I've lived here the majority of my life. I worked in the city of Concord as a police officer for 29 years, went to our local schools, and then got elected to the Pleasant Hill City Council, where I served for 10 years, twice as mayor, and then sought office to be on the Board of Supervisors. And it really is just about serving the community that I've grown up in, I've spent my entire life in, and really excited just to continue the public service career.
Great. I appreciate it. So let's dive into some things that are happening in Contra Costa County. One of the big ones is a few years ago, the county has passed Measure X, which is an additional sales tax that the residents accepted to do. What are the benefits that people are getting in Measure X? What is the success?
It's interesting. We were just in Family and Human Services Committee meeting, and something that was pointed out is when 2020 voters approved Measure X, the board created a citizen advisory body to kind of look at the county priorities and where the needs were. County departments were set about kind of determining what the needs were within the county as far as in our departments. So a lot of money was allocated over the last 3 years now. And what's interesting is not everybody is seeing the results of that money being expended because it truly actually hasn't. And there's a process to go through. Once the money started coming in, once the procedures of where do we want to prioritize that spending, then it goes into the RFP process, that goes into the contract process. So we're just now starting to see some of those dollars actually go to work for us. Money's been allocated to our healthcare system to improve access to our hospitals. Money has gone out to our community benefit organizations to improve services. We've looked at creating the A3 program, which is the Anytime, Anyone, Anywhere program to change how we respond to mental health emergencies and crises. So those people that are experiencing it, how they can do it without law enforcement necessarily being involved. Just so many different things are going on. And we're continuing to make those allocations. So Measure X is a huge change for us. It's let us do some innovative things in our delivery models and greater services to our county residents. And those who need it most, some of our most marginalized populations. Clearly, homelessness is a big focus on where we're spending our Measure X dollars. Housing and affordable housing are a big part of that as well.
That's great. And you touched base briefly on the A3 program, but can you dive a little bit more into that for a minute to let people know who aren't familiar with that?
Yeah, it really is the Miles Hall Call Center. So we're creating a call center to handle mental health emergencies. So those who are experiencing a mental health crisis can call that line, and they don't necessarily have to have a law enforcement response to get their needs. So there's mental health crisis workers who can, one, respond, or two, manage those conversations over the phone, referral for resources. So it's really a change in the model delivery it used to be. And this comes from almost 30 years in law enforcement. If you called to 911 with a mental health crisis, the police are going to respond. And that's not really the best model because there's nothing calming about an officer showing up in a uniform with a gun and a badge. It doesn't necessarily calm people down. So having somebody with those professional skills in dealing with mental illness and behavioral issues is much more effective, much calmer, and puts the client in a safer place. So we're moving forward on rolling that out. We're developing the A3 Center in Concord, and that'll kind of be the hub for those delivery of services.
That's great. That's helpful. So let's talk about the county general plan. There's an update that you and I were talking about going on. It's been 30, 40 years since the general plan's been updated.
1991
Okay.
was the
So
last. So 32 years ago.
tell us, what is half the audience is very astute. Some of us are newbies out there. Talk to us. What is the general plan? How does that govern us? And what is the goal of the updates?
So the general plan is really kind of the framework, the blueprint of the vision of Contra Costa going forward for the next 20 years. It outlines what we want to accomplish. And then it also creates, or at least gives us the outline of the programs that we want to enact and the policies and how we're going to achieve those goals. And that's everything from housing, economic development, to climate, our climate action plan, a sustainability plan, how we're going to manage the environment, all of these different things. So we just late last week released the public review draft. So this is an opportunity for the public to look at that. And there might be something in there. Transportation might be kind of what you're worried about. You're seeing things that trouble you about our transportation in the communities. So you go in, you look at that transportation, and you look at the programs and the policies that we are looking at doing to improve transportation and access to transportation. And it's open for public comment. And it'll be open for a couple of months. And there'll be community outreach events for the public to come out and take a look at the document and have interaction with county staff. But it's the model of what we're going to do. And then from that, we take and we look at our zoning ordinances and our land use plans, and all of that kind of gets updated as well as the general plan. So we're looking at a climate action plan and a general plan update, all kind of at the same time. And again, it's the roadmap of where we're going to be in 2040 or where we'd like to be in 2040. It doesn't mean it's set in stone, because you can always adapt and adjust as you move forward. You see greater needs or unmet needs, we can adapt to those as well. But it does give us a path.
So let's break that down a little bit and talk about sustainability and climate. From your perspective, what are the biggest focus points that the county itself can address and should be working towards?
Well, we need to continue. My district, I have Morgan Territory. You're at the foot of Mount Diablo, parts of Mount Diablo. So wildfire and wildfire mitigation, the impacts of our climate on those things have to be a priority for us. So how can we adapt and adjust to those? What housing should we do? Should we not do? And these are all in partnership. None of it is done solely by the county, right? We have to partner with our residents. Everybody has to play a part in it, business. So the other one to think about is sea level rise. A lot of what goes on in Contra Costa County is fronted by water. You look at the Delta to the Bay, and what's along those waterfronts is a lot of our industry, our refineries, our manufacturing, our rail system, and all of these are near the water. And if you look at projections going out to 2050 and sea level rise, there's a potential for those businesses and industry to be impacted, as well as our transportation system. So what are we doing? One, to mitigate that, and two, what are we doing to prepare and protect ourselves from it? And again, that has to be a partnership with our businesses and our industry and our manufacturing and our transportation plan of how we're going to work together to mitigate the impacts of sea level rise. And it just goes on from there. As far as air quality, what are we going to do about air quality? What are those things we need to do there? Recycling, our waste management system. This year, the county, we were co-sponsors to license and regulate non-franchised waste haulers. What we're finding is somebody decides, I'm going to just do backyard cleanup. I'm going to open a business and I'll go around and solicit trash removal from people's homes. And then we find that landing on the sides of our roads or not being recycled appropriately. It's all ending up in our landfill. So there's things we might want to think about doing even more and beyond that in waste management, how we can do more to divert things from landing in our landfills and being recycled or repurposed in some way.
I was just at a conference of state energy officials, and there was one state that was talking about, it's great that we help people afford more energy efficient and newer appliances. He says, my biggest problem is that we have a pickup problem and they all end up on the side of a road somewhere, dumped out on the highway. So he was like, we've got to figure out, we can't do one without the other. So it just talks about how comprehensive some of this is.
Yeah, we talk about electrification of vehicles, right? Big push. But what we hadn't thought about, or was just kind of coming to light, is what happens when those batteries need to retire? And are we in a position to recycle them? Are they recyclable? And if they're recyclable, how are we going to process that? And what are the risks and hazards of doing that? So every time we come up with one emerging new technology that does benefit us, is what's the unintended, or what's the next step we need to take? And so when we talk about electric cars, now we're going to talk about recycling of those types of batteries.
Right. Okay, let's talk about economic development now. You mentioned it as part of the plan, but I know that's a conversation you and I've had. How there's everything from Momentum Station, there's Buchanan Field that are both in your district, parts of the northern waterfront, and just at large, right? Getting the cities to recruit new businesses. Talk about some of the stuff you've done on economic development and some of the stuff that you want to work on.
Yeah, it really is. How do you make Contra Costa County, and this is, again, it's partnership. There's things like the Diable Valley Tech Initiative. And I've been on the periphery with that group since its beginnings, because we're missing opportunities. And it's kind of a broad subject, because we're all facing this housing crisis, and we're looking at having to create new housing. And part of the methodology that came out of how those numbers were assigned to communities was, well, let's put housing near jobs, or jobs near housing, because then we're taking cars off the road, really betters the life of everyone. And yet Contra Costa County got a significant chunk of housing, and it wasn't proportional to their expected job growth. So we've got to kind of take on the responsibility of making this a better business climate, and where those opportunities are and where we want to take them. What kind of industries and businesses do we want to bring in? So we've had green innovation zones, which Momentum clearly could be a part of, in testing autonomous vehicles and other things that go with that. But in economic empowerment zones, innovation zones, can we bring in biotech? We talked about the airport early on, it's probably a couple of years ago. A lot of these innovations, autonomous flying vehicles, were coming out of Silicon Valley. And yet with the flight patterns down in Silicon Valley, it wasn't appropriate for them to be up testing in the middle of 3 major airports, plus a few municipal ones. The airspace was just too crowded. So the next thing you know is we've got a little bit of that going on at Buchanan, but we lost that opportunity. They went up to Pendleton, Oregon. For those living in Silicon Valley, I don't know, that might be a choice to move to Pendleton, Oregon. But if you're a Bay Area person, you might want to stay in your own backyard, and you could have been working out of Buchanan Airfield. So just looking at, one, how we can incentivize or how we can market Contra Costa County to be a strong economic leader is high on my priority list. And it's something that will be in our general plan.
Yeah. Well, I know you and I have talked in the past about attracting those kind of businesses to work out of Buchanan Field. And that's a great opportunity of high paying jobs of people that a lot of those people already kind of work here or live here, I should say. So now we can create the job opportunities and use that space. And I just learned, I guess somebody was telling me for maybe like 20 years, Buchanan Field was like the number one commuted municipal airport in the country. Is that?
Well, it's got a long history. I don't know. That's an interesting factoid I'd like to know. There's undeveloped portions of the airfield outside of the fence line that's still part of the airport infrastructure that could be developed in technology industries. Like I say, autonomous flying vehicles and the supporting technology that goes around that. There's opportunities there. It's a matter of us getting out, marketing our county, and showing that this is a viable place to do business. When you look at the 680, 242, Highway 4, all of that is right there for the opportunity to bring in whatever resources are necessary to do manufacturing, to do innovative technologies. It really is a convenient space. We got deep water ports. that bring that opportunity as well. So there's so many things that I think we can do if we have the vision and the plan. And you look at us over the course of our history in Contra Costa County, there's been significant opportunities over many decades that, granted, we've transitioned and we're moving away from, but there were reasons why those industries chose to be there. And just like now, yeah, innovation and technology has changed, but the needs of those businesses are still the same. Transportation access to get the resources in and the people to their jobs are there.
Yeah, those are great points and sound like exciting opportunities. Let's talk about how the county can innovate. You mentioned innovation as part of this plan, and you're definitely somebody who believes in innovation in government. What are some things that you've been and you've seen in the last year that you would like to help Contra Costa become a leader in versus a lagger in?
We've got a lot going on, and it's been I don't want to say rough year. It's been a busy year with everything that we've been doing with Measure Act, everything we're doing on the general plan, the climate action plan. It's definitely resource intensive, mostly staff. They are day in, day out grinding and gathering the information to put out the work product and the vision. So technology would be next for me. And we're moving that way slowly, but for whatever reason, and I know there's plans in the works and there's already changes coming on different departments' websites, but we need to build housing and we need to make some changes in our housing. So I would love, and I know DCD, our Department of Conservation and Development, basically our planning department, are working on making that a better process, streamlining that process. And it already has. It used to be you had to go in person and you had to go through all these different steps. Now technology has allowed us to put that online. I just want to see that become much more efficient, much more timely. That seems to be one of the big complaints I get is I've submitted my plans and then they're kicked back and then I've sent them back. How do you make that process smoother, easier? There are definitely professionals out there, but for the mom and pops or the small business owner, going through that permitting process, small restaurant, going through the health department, the fire department, DCD, and all these different agencies to get a permit to open a small restaurant can be daunting and take 6 months to a year. Should it take that long? Not if we're educating people or we're providing them the resources. So I think there's some investment in our technology that we can do as a county to make our interactions with the public much smoother, much more efficient. It's kind of a priority of mine, especially in the planning department.
If there were about 12 episodes into this podcast now, and I think that is the one theme that comes up is how to, well, two themes within that, right? One is time to permit a business and get them through the process, and we'll maybe have PG and E on next year and central sanitation to talk about how long it takes them to do this stuff too. But time to open a business, right? We talk about that as number one. And number two is the sort of like the concierge concept of government, right? How do you just walk somebody through the government process? Because even if you have a great website, the process itself is still, whether you're replacing your HVAC or getting a liquor license, well, that's the state, but it's a complicated process for people to figure out.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I say, we were in a family and human services meeting this morning. And one of the programs we were talking about was we've created navigators. So, and we're still hiring them up, but in District 1 and District 4, we have navigators and they're in our school. So mine is at Oak Grove Middle School, just rolling out. But the idea is being those that are in need of services and support, how do they navigate the system? And that's really, quite often you'll find that it's such an overwhelming and challenging process. They just don't engage, right? So now we have a navigator who can help connect you not only just to the county services, things like CalFresh or Medi-Cal or health services, whatever it might be, but also connect you with our nonprofit partners out in the community, legal services, all these different things. So the concierge, right? Instead of having to open the roadmap and try and figure out this roadmap, You've got somebody to help you point you in the right direction. Yeah. And when it comes to the permitting process on some of these, having that navigator might be the way to go. Somebody who's, yes, I've got your plans in front of me, but I've got 30 plans in front of me. How do I take the time, push all 29 aside so I can take the time to walk you through? Not only do you have my processes here in planning, but you got to get with environmental health, you got to get with fire. So having that navigator might be the solution to some of those challenges.
Well, bringing everybody together across multiple different departments is key. And I've helped clients do that kind of work as well. And I actually like the term navigator that you just used, because I was talking to City Councilman Rick Vaccaro of Fairfield recently, and he was talking about on a homeless initiative, they are building out a navigator center for the county. And they're finding that one of the biggest things is that people might be in one city and they don't know that there's resources in a different part of the county that they need. And it's really about making that match and bridging that communications for people who really need it. And we should talk about it on economic development and for schools, but just making it accessible to everybody with different needs, different concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. The bureaucracy we have can be challenging to navigate and to know all the rules. And the last thing you want to do is invest time or money only to have it delayed or prolonged. And I hear that quite often. I've invested every penny I have in order to start this business up, and I'm just a mom and pop, but I'm now 10 months in to getting my permits. And I'm out of money. I'm living just the challenges that brings. And it is understanding the system. It is us clearly communicating the processes. It's also us trying to streamline it as much as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about healthcare. The county health agency was very busy, as were all their counterparts with COVID. I know we've talked about a lot of subjects, so I know you're not an expert on every single one, but talk about, where does healthcare from the county's perspective go over the next couple of years? What's next? What's their priorities? Anything else you want to add on that subject?
Yeah, they're short staffed. We are trying to hire. There are way too many vacancies. We are one of two counties that run a hospital and a health plan. So we are our own little Kaiser, you might say. We provide the insurance. We're the insurance or the health plan, let alone the care system. And granted, we're partnered with that. John Muir's a part of that. Sutter Delta is a part of that. But what we're facing is we're going to expanding Medi-Cal. So the state is expanding Medi-Cal, and now we're going to have to really pick up a significant number of patients who are going to transition from what might have been Cover California into our health plan because they're on Medi-Cal. So there's that expansion going on, and that's challenging when you're understaffed and facing that transition. Our team is doing a great job. I will say that. The other part of that is we're doing what we can to expand our behavioral healthcare system. So especially for our youth. So there is an expansion planned out at Costa Regional Medical Center in the child psychiatric unit, and trying to find a way to take psych emergency services and kind of separate that from adult and youth. And of course, then we've expended money to create a parking structure out there because access has been a challenge out there. Finding parking when you need to be at the hospital has been just extremely difficult. So there's a lot going on with that. And again, like I say, with the expansion of Medi-Cal, that's probably the biggest challenge we're facing right now. We've got great partners. We've got great community clinics. We have so many of our community benefit organizations that are out there that are contracted with us, that are providing healthcare. We're in good shape. But again, there is a lot of transition going on over the course of the next year to 18 months.
Yeah, it's a big task for Contra Costa Health Department, as well as for everyone in the state, right? There's a lot of new people coming into those programs to be expanded.
Yeah, very much.
So you're almost a year in. What do you think is your your biggest accomplishment so far? What do you feel like?
I don't want to laugh about it, but getting through that first budget cycle. So you come onto the Board of Supervisors in January, and within weeks, you're going through the budget process. And again, our budget process is different than what you face on a city council. Government code does really control a lot of what we do as far as the budget process, but you have federal and state dollars that pass through. So 53% of our budget is federal and state money, specific to allocation to programming and other things we provide. So you're kind of limited, but then I go from a $31 million budget in Pleasant Hill to a $5.1 billion budget at the county. Health services is a big part of that, right? I didn't have a health services department on city council, but so is our criminal justice system, the sheriff's office, our detention facilities, programming there. And then you have EHSD, our Employment and Human Services Department, which handles everything from early childhood education to our seniors to workforce development. It just goes on and on. So you're looking at this huge budget. And I thought initially that was going to be just overwhelmingly daunting. It really wasn't. We put a lot of energy and effort into it, but it was very smooth, let's say, in balancing and getting a balanced budget. And there was some wiggle room in there. So not only passing a balanced budget, but then finding the money to expand some resources. One thing that I felt very passionate about is Stand Together Contra Costa, which provides legal aid to undocumented individuals in our community. And these are people who are working, they are paying taxes, they are contributing to our society, but they're seeking asylum and they're not guaranteed any type of legal support when they go into immigration court. And the success rate as an individual going in there was minimal. Your odds of success were 20% or less. Now with Stand Together Contra Costa and an influx of people coming across the border seeking asylum, we were able to give them additional staffing, clerical and or attorneys, so they can expand the programming, because unbeknownst to many, we have a new immigration court opening probably in early next year. It was supposed to open this summer, but early next year in Concord. And so we're going to see a higher rate of people being pulled into immigration court. So getting them the funding. And then the other thing is with the social justice objectives of the state, let alone us as a county, our DA's office and our public defender's office is having to review all past cases where someone is incarcerated, especially in any pending cases for any sign of racial bias. So that's a daunting task to go through and review all these cases on both sides, public defender and the DA's office. So we were able to find the money to allocate 5 new DAs as well as 5 new public defenders. 1, so they could do that work, but 2, manage the caseload that will result from the scrutiny of that work. So a lot going on. But again, with a balanced budget and being able to expand those services specifically were really important to me. And I think those are, in the first year, significant accomplishments. In talking to my staff today, it's okay. Now it's time to let's set the priorities. What do we want to focus on? What are those things that we can go after? And again, like we've talked before many times, economic development, clearly we have the priorities, right? Housing, homelessness, behavioral health, the priorities we all see each and every day. But again, we can improve the quality of life in Contra Costa County if we bring economic vitality, right? That brings money, brings jobs, brings opportunity to everyone. So economic opportunity and how we're going to generate those jobs are really important to me. So how we can work with our airport, how we can work with things like the Gomentum station, I see as a great opportunity. The Northern Waterfront project, how we can entice appropriate manufacturing, take advantage of green technology and the expansion that's going on there. There's just so much. So economic diversity is a priority to me. Economic innovation, how we can bring jobs and business to Contra Costa is one of my top priorities.
Awesome. Those are great priorities to have. Anything else that you want to talk about today as a key priority?
No, again, it just really is a privilege. And many people have asked, especially in this first year, that it is a lot of work to get up to speed on all the different departments and everything that goes on in the county, engage in the county. We, like I say, envision Contra Costa, our general plan, was out with our CCTV team last week, shooting a couple of videos so that we can share it and generate, hopefully, public engagement on those things. So with all of that, people have asked me, oh my gosh, is this just overwhelming? And I've told them, this is, in all my careers, the best job I've ever had. I love the work I'm doing. I love engaging with the community, hearing from the community what their ideas are, what they'd like to see change, what they think we can focus in on. So it's really important to me. And that's why if there are people out there or someone that has questions or concerns, especially when it's over District 4, which is kind of my little realm, granted it's the whole county, but District 4 is who I have the strongest voice for. Feel free to reach out to my office, and I have a great team. I'm very fortunate that I have a great staff, and we're all energized to work for our constituents. So feel free to get a hold of me at my office, shoot us emails, whatever you need to do.
Great. And we'll put that contact information in the show notes so you know how to reach them. All right. I appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for your time. We're joined today by Supervisor Ken Carlson from Contra Costa County on the Capstone conversation. Thank you for being here with us today. Remember, hit subscribe so you get the weekly notifications, and feel free to find me on LinkedIn at Jared Asch, ASCH, or at Capstone Government Affairs. Thank you for your time today.